there was something that came out of nothing. Nothing became something of the universe. Really? Maybe not. What is the reality? Does something really come out of nothing? Throughout the entire universe, there was nothing. Then suddenly, there was something that came out of nothing. Nothing became something of the universe. Really? Maybe not. What is the reality? Does something really come out of nothing?
And we're coming to you almost live all the way from our studios here in Southern California. Yeah. And we've got a great program lined up for you tonight if you subscribe to the theory about everybody is a slave to something. Yeah. Are you really a slave? Or did you come from slaves? Hey, that's something I didn't put in that question tonight. I should have added that, right? Are you a descendant of slaves? Because I know what everybody would think about that, and they'd say, yeah, or no way, or, But in fact, Islam says you are a slave. What? Yeah, how did I get there? And how does that? Why? What is that all about? And we're going to find out about that tonight, about real slavery and what it's really all about. Is it bad? Is it good? Is it somewhere in between? I really want to know. And all of your friends, neighbors, companions, and people that you hook up with on social media, they want to know too. What is that guy talking about? So save this right now or share it right now. Do it quick. Oh, I need you to like it, please, and send up the hearts all the time we're doing the program. Can you do all of that? Oh, wait a minute. There's one more thing I want you to do. I want everybody on social media right now to join us. And how you can do that, if you're on, for instance, Facebook, and we have a lot of people following us on, about 750,000 following us on Facebook, okay? But I need you to hook up with that one too, because we want to throw it over the 1,000,000 mark in this month. Before the end of this month, we need to throw that over the 1,000,000 mark. So sharing this and telling other people to share it, and they share it, and those share it, and then all of us telling them at the same time, join. And the more people who follow this, called follow, right? On Facebook, they call it follow. Yeah. Anyway, so that's that. We got all that out of the way, and we're ready to go to our next level, our next step in finding out about slavery. And we do want to find out about this. We're going to go all the way to the middle of the United States of America, to St. Louis, Mo, and we're going to ask one of our brothers there to tell us more about what is this thing. And and one more thing too, you can also sign up for our newsletter. We're going to put that up tonight too as well. And right now, here's Dr. Sultan.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. MashaAllah. Doctor, what's going on there in St. Louis?
Doing as the usual. Today the gyms opened in our area, so I just drove by to see the population, the attendance. It was amazing that the quarter of the parking lot was full. And it was like 9 o'clock in the morning when I was going to work. So people are trying to get back to the same routine. But again, it is, I think, dangerous. 22 states started having more coronaviruses, more peaks. And people say, well, it's because of more numbers, because of number of testing, you know, what. But the point in here is there is a spike. No matter how you count the numbers, infected person is an infected person. Who that person is has a communicable disease and can affect you too. So therefore, we have to be as cautious as before. Again, common sense approach needs to be applied. Washing hands, social distancing, masks, personal cleanliness, and healthy foods. So all these things add up to your immunity, because basically coronavirus is, or any infections do not set in your body unless your immune system is down.
Okay. So you're saying then that we should do the, I think what you're saying, we can get back to the so-called normal, but we need to follow these steps. Is that, you're not saying just stay isolated?
No, not isolated, but start meeting, start doing the business, have interaction, but with social distancing until we have enough time to see what impact that has. If the impact is not great, socialization can be more complete. And if it surges, then we have to be more cautious. Again, many people think, you know, it's just hocus pocus, you know, and just the propaganda. But those people who are affected, now there are so many people I personally know whose families are affected. My personal family is affected. I have death in my personal family. So I'm telling you from that experience that this is not fake, it is real, and we must take appropriate precautions that are necessary for prevention and protecting ourselves and protecting other people.
It all makes sense, Doctor, and nobody is, I don't think any of us are arguing that point. I think that it is important for us to get back as quickly as possible, but at the same time as safe as possible, because, you know, anytime that you are dealing with people's lives, how can I say this? I think that livelihood is so important, but it's not as important as life itself. So we have to take life over livelihood, but it would be nice if we can somehow merge that together to make it all work out so that we can have livelihood. Otherwise, we don't have life. Does that make sense?
Exactly. And there's another way of putting that too, and that is, before this coronavirus, people used to go out to earn money to have a living. Now, to live, you have to stay inside the house.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's yeah. Wow.
So this is just a food for thought, you know. Before you'll go out because you have to live. Now you stay inside the house because you have to live.
Well, Yeah, but I get that. I get what you're saying. At the same time, I would like to emphasize that we have a series of programs that we're doing here, guys, but we always want to come back to the reality of what's really happening right now here in the United States and around the world. So please, guys, anytime you share this thing, keep in mind the date that you're seeing it as opposed to the date that it was actually broadcast, because maybe new information is coming out that supersedes whatever we had in our broadcast. Like right now, we are live while we're doing this, but if you see it, let's say 2 weeks in advance, 2 weeks, yeah, you can't do that. That's future. But if you see it 2 weeks after we did it, then maybe some of the information that's coming about this virus and livelihood and so on has changed. And that's what we're hoping for. Change for the better, by the way. Change for the better. Doctor, we have a program tonight that we're talking about slavery. Maybe
exactly.
Did you hear that when I was signing in?
Yes, I did.
All right. So now I offered up to everybody and made the statement, a blatant statement, that all of us are slaves according to Islam. Is that true, or maybe I'm wrong?
Yes, that is true. It depends. Whose slave are you?
Okay, now wait a minute. Now hold on. Now, so you're acknowledging that Islam says we're slaves. Is that right or wrong?
Well, with qualification.
No, wait.
Yeah.
Now you're saying I'm wrong. Okay, because I didn't qualify it. I didn't qualify it or quantify it. I said Islam says we are all slaves. Is that
I
true
am
or
somebody's
false?
slave.
Huh?
I am somebody's slave.
But do you agree that everybody's a slave?
Well, it depends.
Okay, then no, if you say it depends, that puts it in a whole another picture. I'm saying across the universe, everything in the entire universe is a slave. And I'm not going to add more to that right now, but I'm just asking you for a yes or no. Do you agree with that blanket statement, or you're going to say not really?
Yes, I agree with that blanket statement.
Good. So we're on the same page. Okay. Because, it's one thing to talk to my audience out here about what's going on, but if I have to convince the guest about it, then that's a whole different story, and I got to really work on it. All right. Okay. Yeah. And maybe I'm wrong. Hey, who knows? So, yeah, let's go forward on that.
You see, I was just doing your mind reading, and I came across exactly what you were saying. So that's why I agreed with you. Yes, you are 100% right. Everybody is a slave.
Perfect. That's where I want to go. Because I don't want to, like a mystery movie, you don't start out the movie about, the title is Who Killed So-and-so? Who killed the master of the house? All right?
Yeah.
That's a good title. But if you say, what did they do with the butler after he killed the master of the house? You kind of ruined the whole story. There's no reason to watch the show anymore. We already know who did it, so we don't care what they do with him. Hang him, electrocute him, blow him to, throw him and bury him alive. I don't care. But so that's
exactly.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that.
Yeah.
And I think how we treat our programs in the beginning. We like to get a lot of interest from the people so they will share it and then get other people involved. Many Christians right now are re-looking and examining their Christianity because of the things we put over there for the last 20 years. Many of them are re-examining, and they're saying, is this really Christ-like? Is my Christianity really like Christ, or is it really something that came from preachers, pastors, priests, and bishops and so on over the centuries? Because if it is, maybe maybe it isn't really Christ-like. And because we believe in the Christ, we've even explored what the word means from Koine Greek. It's a translation of Messiah. And the Messiah is absolutely Isa, Jesus. And that's in the Quran. Isa ibn Maryam, he is the Messiah, or Messiah. Messiah is a mispronunciation, really, of the Aramaic word Messiah, Messiah. Anyway, so now, because of the way we present our programs, we start out with a statement, a blanket statement, a question about something, so that we're capturing their attention without lying, of course, because anything that you put up is a lie, then you walked out of Islam yourself, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said what means in English, and I have to say that because there was no English at the time of the Prophet sallallahu. He said that what means in English, that whoever deceives us is not of us. And he didn't just say lying, he said deceives us. That's one of the reasons why a lot of the scholars don't like magic acts, because they say, well, that's deception. Is that right, Doctor?
Yeah, you know better than I do. I thought it was just magic is just tricks, falsifying what your eyes are seeing and actually what it is. But there is another part of what Quran talks about, that he had sent some angels in one of the nations who will teach them actually how to do the magic, which would produce a discord between husband and wife and make them divorce. And they used to tell them that, hey, this is bad, don't do it. But I'm going to teach you how to do it. Now it is your test, whether you act on that or you don't act on that. That is your own choice. So when I hear about the word magic, that what comes to my mind. But here in our day-to-day life, when we talk about magic, so it is just like deceiving your eyes. What your eyes see is actually not what it is. I'll show you a card. Show you 5 cards.
You mean if somebody actually shows you a card?
Yeah. And you
because
think...
because you're not the magician. You don't do magic, right?
No, I don't do magic, no.
Okay. Because you said if I show you a card.
No. If somebody shows you...
okay.
Somebody shows you,
I'm with you.
3 cards, but actually there are 5 cards, and you really happen to believe that they sometimes on those cards they have dots,
Yeah.
You count those dots, and there are 5, now there's 3, now there's 2, there's 1, So how they take the bird out of their pocket or out of your hand or out of your handkerchief or something like that. So those are just the deception. That's not reality. That's the deception. So that's what we call them, really, a magic these days.
I got it. I got that. All right. Well, by the way, I just put this back up, guys. If you'd like to sign up for our newsletter, then shareislam.com lists. You have to put all of that on there, okay? HTTPS no, it's not dot. It's colon. Yeah, / shareislam.com list. I wish they'd have just put it shareislam.com list, because that will still work. shareislam.com/lists. And when you go there, you'll be able to sign up for our newsletter. Everybody got that? Okay? All righty. And we can take that off now. Doctor, let's go back to slavery. No. Wait, yeah. I said that wrong, didn't I? No, I don't want to go back to slavery. I don't, that's not my thing anyway. Alhamdulillah. What I'd like to say is that maybe, let's look at it from another standpoint, maybe we could go back to our discussion about what I said earlier. Everybody's a slave. What do you think?
Yes, I'm convinced that you are 100% right.
Okay. Now we're both on the same page with the slavery. And when we come back, we got to take this little short break, guys. Don't panic. Anybody, do not panic. We are going to bring you something real cool here in just in a minute. Let's see if I can do it so that you can see this. It's going to be a few minutes, but watch this thing about slavery, and then we'll be right back right after this. Stay tuned, stay guided with Guidance TV.
From the late 15th to the mid-19th century and spanning 3 continents.
Oh, I forgot about the audio. Let's see if I can put the audio on it. Yeah, here we go. I think we got it now. Audio capture device. I sure hope this works. Let's see if this works. Bismillah.
From the late 15th to the mid-19th century and spanning 3 continents, forcibly brought more than 10 million Africans to the Americas. The impact it would leave affected not only these slaves and their descendants, but the economies and histories of large parts of the world. There had been centuries of contact between Europe and Africa via the Mediterranean, but the Atlantic slave trade began in the late 1400s with Portuguese colonies in West Africa and Spanish settlement of the Americas shortly after. The crops grown in the new colonies, sugarcane, tobacco, and cotton, were labor-intensive, and there were not enough settlers or indentured servants to cultivate all the new land. American natives were enslaved, but many died from new diseases, while others effectively resisted. And so, to meet the massive demand for labor, the Europeans looked to Africa. African slavery had existed for centuries in various forms. Some slaves were indentured servants, with a limited term and the chance to buy one's freedom. Others were more like European serfs. In some societies, slaves could be part of a master's family, own land, and even rise to positions of power. But when white captains came offering manufactured goods, weapons, and rum for slaves, African kings and merchants had little reason to hesitate. They viewed the people they sold not as fellow Africans, but criminals, debtors, or prisoners of war from rival tribes. By selling them, kings enriched their own realms and strengthened them against neighboring enemies. African kingdoms prospered from the slave trade, but meeting the Europeans' massive demand created intense competition. Slavery replaced other criminal sentences, and capturing slaves became a motivation for war rather than its result. To defend themselves from slave raids, neighboring kingdoms needed European firearms, which they also bought with slaves. The slave trade had become an arms race, altering societies and economies across the continent. As for the slaves themselves, they faced unimaginable brutality. After being marched to slave forts on the coast, shaved to prevent lice, and branded, they were loaded onto ships bound for the Americas. About 20% of them would never see land again. Most captains of the day were tight packers, cramming as many men as possible below deck. While the lack of sanitation caused many to die of disease, and others were thrown overboard for being sick or as discipline, the captains ensured their profits by cutting off slaves' ears as proof of purchase. Some captives took matters into their own hands. Many inland Africans had never seen whites before and thought them to be cannibals, constantly taking people away and returning for more. Afraid of being eaten, or just to avoid further suffering, they committed suicide or starved themselves, believing that in death their souls would return home. Those who survived were completely dehumanized, treated as mere cargo. Women and children were kept above deck and abused by the crew, while the men were made to perform dances in order to keep them exercised and curb rebellion. What happened to those Africans who reached the New World, and how the legacy of slavery still affects their descendants today, is fairly well known. But what is not often discussed is the effect that the Atlantic slave trade had on Africa's future. Not only did the continent lose tens of millions of its able-bodied population, but because most of the slaves taken were men, the long-term demographic effect was even greater. When the slave trade was finally outlawed in the Americas and Europe, the African kingdoms whose economies it had come to dominate collapsed, leaving them open to conquest and colonization. And the increased competition and influx of European weapons fueled warfare and instability that continues to this day. The Atlantic slave trade also contributed to the development of racist ideology. Most African slavery had no deeper reason than legal punishment or intertribal warfare, but the Europeans who preached a universal religion and who had long ago outlawed enslaving fellow Christians needed justification for a practice so obviously at odds with their ideals of equality. So they claimed that Africans were biologically inferior and destined to be slaves, making great efforts to justify this theory. Thus, slavery in Europe and the Americas acquired a racial basis, making it impossible for slaves and their future descendants to attain equal status in society. In all of these ways, the Atlantic slave trade was an injustice on a massive scale, whose impact has continued.
And we're back. We've been talking about this, and we put something up for you to watch about. It's an introduction to our subject about slavery, and 100%. And I say this on behalf of everybody involved in our programs, that all of us, we are very, very much against the trafficking in humans and subjugating them to this idea of slavery. And along with that, I'd like to also bring back Dr. Sultan, because I want to be sure that everybody understands we're not saying that we are for slavery as was depicted right here in this program so far. We're talking about a different kind of slavery. Is that right, Doctor?
Yes, you're 100% right.
Yes. Okay. So what we're talking about is something that is in the Quran, and it's in chapter 51, verse 56 of the Quran. If you go by the numbers like I do, otherwise, if you go by the Arabic, they say Surah Ad-Dariyat. Surah Ad-Dariyat or Al-Dariyat is in about the middle of the Quran numerically wise, because there's about 114 surahs or chapters. However, because the first part of it is these surahs are huge, and the last part of it, these surahs are very small. It's quite a small surah. So this is right at the end of it, number 56, ayah number 56. It says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. The translation from it into the English language, plus or minus, it says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us what our purpose in life for is and what we're supposed to be doing. I consider it the answer to all of us, because God Almighty, the one who created us, is telling us right here. And he uses a negative form to bring it forward, a sort of a rhetorical question. But at the same time, it's not a question, it's a statement. He's saying, I did not create jinn and mankind except to be slaves. Now, that is my translation. In Arabic, it says abd. Abd. And abd can mean slaves. But it also can mean one who is in voluntary servitude. In other words, one who chooses to be a servant. We often use the term worship, but it is very much closer to the word abd and of servant, as a servant or a slave. This is why when somebody is named Abdullah, that a translation could be a slave of Allah or a servant of Allah. But the difference between the slavery that we're familiar with in our country is that most of us, we don't know about voluntary servitude. Most of us don't know about people who actually surrender their freedom over for a period of time or for a certain amount of money or for whatever reason or how, but they chose to become servants or slaves to a master. And this is the essence of what we're talking about tonight. And the question that we started with is very crystal clear. We said that Islam says that all of us are slaves. And we have another doctor who has signed in with us right now. Let's bring him out, and we're going to give him that question and see how well he does on that. And right now, 1, 2, 3. Oh my God, I've got to play with it again. Okay, but that's half the fun of being in this motion picture kind of a atmosphere. Let's see if we can do this. All right, let's do that. Doctor, we have Dr. Adil is with us. Salaam alaikum, doctor.
Salaam alaikum wa rahmatullah.
MashaAllah, how are you? How is everything going there?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Couldn't thank Allah enough. And always just talking about the heart series, like we started yesterday.
Yeah, hold. We got a question for you, doctor. I said at the beginning of the program, I said that Islam says that all of us are slaves. Is that, and that's a yes or no?
Absolutely, absolutely. Ibad al-Rahman, Ibad al-Rahman. You know, the common theme in the Quran.
Careful, you're going beyond. Yeah, just ask for a yes or no.
Yes. Big yes.
Yeah. On the little bit of stuff that I do out here, don't steal the thunder, man. Come on. You can have the lightning, all right. But the thunder, I like to hold on to that.
Sure.
Today, Sheikh is on the move. You know, does your wife still keep beating you? You just have to answer yes or no.
Whoa!
Whoa!
Oh,
yes or no question.
We got a phone call here. Let's take the phone call and bring in. It's Richard. Richard, Salaam alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ah.
I want to let you know I'm alive.
Well, we are glad you're still alive. We missed you.
Missed you, Richard?
Yes. I missed you too.
Yeah, we just have a host of home responsibilities that needed taken care of, and we're done with those now.
Okay, are you going to be back with us tomorrow?
Tomorrow, alhamdulillah, inshallah, yes.
Great.
Forward to that.
All right, we got only a few minutes left in our program tonight, but we'll definitely be looking for you tomorrow. Okay?
Inshallah.
We'll do that.
Great. Assalamu alaikum. MashaAllah. I can't wait for Richard because I want him to weigh in on this subject too. We're still going to be continuing that. But we talked about slavery, and we said that in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God Almighty, the one who is the creator and sustainer of the whole entire universe, said, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. And that's in Surah Al-Dariyat, chapter 51, verse 56, telling us clearly that he did not create any of us except for worship. And that's the beautiful word that we brought into it with Dr. Adil, except for worship. And that's what slaves do. They are immediately following everything and anything their master says. That's what a slave is supposed to do. And if you're a good slave, you follow and do exactly as your master commands you. And there are commandments in Islam. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are insisting that you must obey your creator and sustainer. And the first and foremost rule is, and then we're going to go on with our subject about the hearts, and we'll come back to the slavery tomorrow. But let's find out what is that first rule. Why? What? Every single person on this planet, and doctors, if you are free, by the way, to interrupt me as I'm speaking, because if I'm making any mistake, I really want you to stand up and say, hey, stop right there, because maybe, I'm a human being, and I do make lots of mistakes, all right? So, but a human being is born in a state of slavery, whether they want to be or not, because each and every one of us is a slave to something in our lives. Some of us are slaves to our appetites, our physical appetites to eat. Some are slaves to our mental appetites. We want to control other people. Some of us are slaves to our emotions, our thinking, our surroundings, but each and every one of us is committing ourselves to something, whether it's football. For instance, there are people who are so wrapped up in football they can't think about anything else. That's a form of slavery. There are people who are so wrapped up in money they can't think about anything else. That's a form of slavery. Some people are so wrapped up in politics that my party versus your party, by the way, in Arabic that's called asabiya. And it's something in Islam, Allah tells you don't get involved in all of that, because the worship or voluntary slavery to Allah takes precedence over everything and anything else. Okay, so that's where we are with that. Now we'll go back to Dr. Sultan. Was I wrong about anything that I said, or do you agree with that, or what?
I 100% agree with you.
Okay.
You have 2 translators capsules. Do you want to use Bixby translation?
No, I don't. I don't know how you got on here. Bixby just interrupted me, but okay. So what I'm saying now is that it's time for us to go to another portion of our program. So please, I ask you guys in the beginning, share this. Please share this right now. And also follow it. Click the little box as a follower so that whenever we go live, you'll be notified immediately. Please do that and encourage others to do it. Now let's go back to Tampa, Florida with Dr. Ado. If I can make it work, it's not working. There it goes. There. Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you so much. And when anyone is in full submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the main organ of the body that really submits is the heart. And once the heart, because it's a master organ of the body, then the rest of the body will submit fully to the creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yesterday, for those who were not listening, we talked about the anatomy of the heart, the basic structure of the heart, and you'll know that how assuring and how calming and soothing to know that Allah, the Almighty God, is closer to us than our own internal jugular vein on the neck. So this is as close as it gets, and Allah is closer to us than our internal jugular vein in the neck. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the heart, the human heart, in the Quran 132 times. And it's referred sometimes metaphorically, the qalb, the Arabic word for qalb, because of taqallub or flop, because the heart and emotions could change, or al-fu'ad. That's another name that they're referred to in the Quran, al-af'ida, the plural, hearts. And you could, if you're from Brooklyn, you say, have a hot, the hot doctor. Or if you're from Boston, you say hot. So this is just a different way, the qalb and the fu'ad. Same thing would make it consequently to the heart. So the healthy heart or the soft heart, the clean heart, that has the human attitude, that has balanced, that at heart and honest, that it's very, soothing and very gentle. And the Quran verse relates to the human hearts and the emotion that actually evolves around it 1,400 years ago. The science of the heart recently showed that the human brain, if you would, and there's definite connection between the heart and the brain, and this communication makes the heart dominant over the brain. And this is from a biophysically, point of view, through certain hormone and communication that goes on between the heart and the brain. The human heart electromagnetic field, that's another important thing that is science proven recently, is the most powerful rhythmic field produced by the human body. And it's enveloped almost every cell in the body, and that's how the heart is the master organ of the entire body. And it gives the direction of information processing and also gets the decision making, and it helps the brain to do that. So the human heart brain synchronization, or they call the cardiac coherence, that has become established fact in the recent years, that the heart is influence over the body. And we see this all the time when somebody, quote unquote, had been declared clinically dead, when the brain has no function, and you can prove it, but the heart's still beating. So this is the first organ to actually come into life and the last to leave. So in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned to so many about the qalbin salim, the pure, clean heart. And then also in other verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described in other people, في قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرضا ولهم عذاب أليم. There is other sicknesses in the heart that Allah would increase that illness, those the diseases of doubts, diseases of desires, diseases of distrust and disbelief. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had also other examples of the heart, the thinking heart, the heart that has this, which is a metaphor that really reflects the ability to think and ponder of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just take that pause for spiritual renewal and for self-assessment. And how we could, the human heart in most cases, whether this have been artificial conditioning of the heart, if you would, post-transplant, and this could make the heart distorted in some way or the other. But it always back the reconditioning of the heart is a task that must be guided, and knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there and closer to you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also mentioned, and I will touch a little bit every day on some of the ayah, that and this happened repeatedly. I'm going to start in a chronological order from Surah Al-Baqarah onwards. ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who He has been unhappy and have displeased with, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would put a stamp or put a layer of membrane or a block on their hearts and on their ears and on their vision, on their eyes. So they will not hear, they will not listen, because the hearing and the vision, these are the senses that actually, when they first occur, when you meet or see or hear, then it will translate, give signals to the heart, and then the heart will, for instance, if you listen to the Quran, or you hear, or you see, for instance, Salat al-Jum'ah from the Haram or something like that, then that will hit and transmit into the heart. But for those who Allah unhappy with, Allah will put that block so that they will, on their hearts, on the ears, and on their visions, so that they will not go through, because they will have disease in their heart, and they will not have the ability to comprehend and show that. In Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 73, ثُمَّ قَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ, their heart became so unbelievably hardened, and it could be even harder than the rocks. So some of the rocks will actually shatter, لَيَتَفَجَّرَ مِنْهُ الْأَنْهَارُ, and the rivers will go through it. And مِنْهَا لَمَّا يَشَّقَّقْ, some of them will crack, فَيَخْرُجُ مِنْهُ الْمَاءُ, the water will come through it. وَإِنَّ مِنْهَا لَمَّا يَهْبِطُ مِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ, and some of the rocks will actually collapse out of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But those hearts are harder or hardened, worse than that. This is obviously a sign of this pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the heart have come to that point that became absolutely heartless. I'm gonna go on tomorrow to other ayat and different verses of how the Quran has different situations that reflects exactly what mentioned about the desires, about the ability to communicate, to hear, to reflect, to really come back to Allah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the therapy for the hardened heart, how they could be softened and then renew back to Allah. Some of the heart softeners are prayer, the fasting, the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, qiyamul layl, and so on. So this is just a kind of intro to the heart and how the heart are related in the Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasized the impact that we have on everything that we do based on what the heart perceives and acts upon.
So how important is the Quran for our hearts?
Actually, I would believe, this is the lifeline, the best way I can do. The Quran is the lifeline for the hearts. With the Quran, there's life in the hearts. Without the Quran, the hearts would rust. That Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it said, if people don't connect with the Quran, the heart would rust just like the iron does. So وَمَا جِلَاؤُهَا يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, what cleans the hearts if they rust? Said قَالَ تِلَاوَةُ الْقُرْآنِ. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam responded, reading the Quran will clean the heart, will take that rust away from the heart, and will soften the heart, and will make the heart tremble, and will bring tears to your eyes, and will reflect on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to everything around you, where everybody could be in big scandals and in anxiety and stress. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would come in tranquility. Just when بِأَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ, Allah would ask that question. Wouldn't the heart be humbled and tranquil with reading the Quran? Absolutely, the answer is big yes.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. And we're almost out of time now. A conclusion from you, please, Dr. Adil.
Conclusion, dua, you want?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Let's raise our hands as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make sincere dua to Allah be answered. Allahumma aghfir lana dhunubana wa israfana fi amrina wa thabbit aqdamana wa ansurna ala al-qawmi al-kafirin. اللهم نعوذ بك من الهم والحزن ونعوذ بك من العجز والكسل ونعوذ بك من الجبن والبخل ونعوذ بك من غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال. اللهم نعوذ بك من الكفر والفقر. اللهم نعوذ بك من عذاب النار وعذاب القبر ومن الفتن ما ظهر منها وبطن من شر المسيح الدجال. Oh Allah, please purify our hearts. Oh Allah, please forgive our sins. Oh Allah, please keep us on the straight path. Oh Allah, keep our hearts united. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. رحمتك يا رحمة الله.
MashaAllah. Tomorrow we'll continue with what we've been talking about, guys, so that we can all learn more about this idea of being slaves and what is that really all about. So be sure to tune in tomorrow. And Dr. Sultan, if you will, just give us a parting about slavery.
Yes. Again, as we said, yes, everyone is slave to something. And the best being slave is to Almighty Allah Ta'ala, who has created us and given us everything else. All it means is, as yesterday we were talking about, that He has said that if you 5 times, 5 minutes, you do my work, you do slavery to me, do namaz, I will give you so much ajr at the end, and I will give you, promise to give you Jannah. And this is a very small amount to pay. On the other hand, people slave to their work. They work more.
Yeah, we're running out. We're overtime already. But yeah, just wrapping it all up. Just as both of the doctors have told us about our hearts, and our slave inside of our hearts really wants us to do that. You were created to want to be a slave to something, either in the material world or to the one who created the material universe. Up to you. Choose, but choose wisely, and stay guided with
Guide Us TV.
Guide Us TV.
Ah, yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire universe, there was nothing. Then suddenly, there was something that came out of nothing. Nothing became something.